Okay, I'm Chuck Holt, and we're doing a build breakdown today on my 97 Jeep Wrangler TJ. My very first, what I would call a wheeler, was an 87 Samurai. I think it was on 32s, and it was a beater. And then I had a 89 Toyota pickup. I had a 97 Tacoma. Those were both on 33s. And then I had, I think, 3 XJs. I think that was it.
Okay, how long have you had it? Where'd you get it? What kind of condition was it in?
Man, I think I've had it 11 or 12 years now, maybe even a little more than that. Actually, yeah, a little, maybe 12 years. And it was stock height, and it had the bumpers, it had a Warren winch, and it had 30-inch all-terrains, but pretty good condition, really. It wasn't wrecked or thrashed or anything. And within a week, I had it on 35s with 410 gears on a budget.
So did you go, well, obviously you said in a week you went to 35s. How long did it take you to get to this current setup?
Oh, the whole 12 years.
So just a little bit at a time?
Yep, pretty much. I think you got me a shirt one time that says, the more you play with it, the bigger it gets. And
I may have. So did the bullet hole come with it, or did you do that?
The bullet hole came with it. Everybody asked about that. I still don't know for sure if it was a bullet hole or a axe from a crazy ex chasing somebody out of the driveway.
A chain.
Maybe somebody pulling and broke a chain or a strap or a winch line or something. I'm not sure.
So tell me about the axles you got in this and why you chose these ones.
Okay, so for a long time, I had the 30 and the 35 that, all TJs come with, and they held up for 9 years. So they're a little tougher than people say, and that's on 35s, beating on it pretty good with lockers. And I finally grenaded the front end, yanking somebody out of the ditch, aired way down on gravel. So I decided to upgrade. The axle I got is a G2 Core 44 front with the Gen 2 carrier. So it's a JK center section, thicker tubes, thicker C's, and TJ width. And I'm 513s front and rear, and full case Detroit mechanical lockers front and rear, and chromoly shafts. The rear is the crosscut 60, and it's 35 spline chromolys.
So I got a little side story on his axles in the Jeep. When he did that build, he was frantically trying to get them in because we were all going on a motorcycle trip, a BDR adventure, and he literally got the axles in the Jeep and wanted to come along and met us down in Oregon for the Camp 1.
I was waiting on them, and I didn't know if I'd be able to go at all, and they came in 2 days before, so I had to get everything fabbed up, get them in, and then leave and meet these guys on the road.
I think you said you had time to take it around the block to do the gear oil break-in or something, and he literally met up with us Camp 1, and then we did 1,600 miles on that trip.
Yeah.
We went all the way to California, and this is backcountry. Actually, some of it wasn't even a road. There was a couple spots the old Jeep was on a motorcycle trail.
Well, I think there's actually some evidence on the hood here from that trip.
We may or may not have led him down a pretty narrow, tight-fitting trail. From California, went out to Nevada, Steens Mountains, come back. And that was your maiden voyage of brand new axle, brand new setup.
That was literally the break-in on the new axle, the springs, the fab work on the axles to make them fit the arm kit, the everything.
All right, Chuck, so what's done to this thing suspension-wise? We just talked about the axles, but what about the rest of it?
Okay, so the suspension, I have metal cloak, 4.5-inch springs, and you might think, well, that's not very much lift to be clearing 39s, but it works because the Highline fenders, and they're cut up a long ways. So it's metal cloak 4.5s on the springs. It's a Clayton long arm kit, and I've got that stretch, so I didn't land the brackets exactly where they wanted me to in the kit. The front brackets on the frame are moved forward a little, and the rear are moved back a little. And the rear's a single triangulated. The front is a radius arm setup. But it works great for what I do with it. And then all the steering stuff is custom that I did with a Terraflex passenger knuckle with the dual pickup point. And these here are, I think they're R-Tech shock outboard kits. So you chop into the frame, move your shocks out here, and you can get a way longer shock in there for more travel. The front are factory Ford 87 F250-ish shock towers, and that converts it to the regular eyelet style shock. And I just chopped out the factory one. You hammer this in and weld it out, and with the Highline fender, it moves everything up. Therefore, you can move your shock up, and again, same thing, get a longer shock for more travel, which you can use more travel with the metal cloak springs because they stretch out a lot.
Tell me about your tire and wheel setup.
Well, for summer, I run these 39 BFGs, and they're only on steel wheels, but I have, I think, 4 wraps of Gorilla Tape on each bead, and it holds it on really well. I tested them out in the winter. I'll throw a clip in here. And I was able to get down to 1.5 PSI, pushing it sideways against snow until it finally lost a bead. Okay, so we went down to 2 pounds. So the Gorilla Tape bead locks worked for a little while, but at 1.5 PSI, we lost a bead. So it did really well, but that was last winter, and I've ran these all summer, and as you can see, they don't last forever. The tape's starting to spit itself out.
What do you run in the winter?
38 1450 MTRs. So it's Dirty Life 17-inch bead lock, and then these tires do really, really good in the snow, and they squish out really well. The fenders were homemade, and I've redone them twice now. I just bought them from somebody off Craigslist back in the day and have liked them. They didn't have a flare. We built the flare. Then I cut the flare off and moved it back when I went with bigger tires. But they're Highline, which is what I always wanted to do when I first found out about people Highlining Jeeps.
So did you have to cut the hood when you did that?
Yep, slice the hood. You move it up 3.5 inches. So the rear is same deal. They came with the fronts from the guy I bought them from, and I like them because there's a huge opening. It comes all the way back to the very back corner.
What's that thing on your tailgate?
That's a cooler holder. As we all know, TJs do not have a whole lot of cargo space at all, so I had to build this to hold my cooler. Well, the engine's the best you can get. It's inline 6 4-liter, just totally stock. So there's literally, I have done nothing besides maintenance to this thing. Then it still runs great, and it don't make a lot of power, as we all know, but it makes the torque at really low RPMs, which is really, really good for trying to crawl things at low wheel speed.
So as far as you know, this is the engine that came in this rig? It hasn't been changed?
As far as I know, yeah. And it's got 220,000 on it now and just runs absolutely perfect.
So what about the transmission? Because you are known to have a nickname about transmissions. Is this the original transmission too?
No, I'm a little bit hard on transmissions. People might not know that. If you looked around the shop, you don't need to, but if you did, you'd find lots of transmission carcasses. This is the third transmission in it. It's a manual. Came with the AX15. I broke that. I broke the reverse idler gear on that, and then finally I found out that you can get, I shouldn't even be telling people this because they're going up in price, but you can get a 05 and 06, the last 2 years of the TJ. If you get a manual out of one of those, then it's a Mercedes manual 6-speed, which is kind of cool that you get the extra gear, but that's not what's cool about it. What's cool about it is how low the gears are in that. First gear is a 4.43 to 1, if I remember right, but it's way lower than the AX15. And then even sixth gear is actually lower than fifth gear in the AX15. An Atlas 2-speed, the ratio is a 3.8, but I got it for a deal. I would have never bought the 3.8 if I was buying a new one, which I was looking at buying a new one because I really like the Atlas stuff. I probably would have bought the 4.3, but I'm really glad that I ended up with the 3.8 because with the 6-speed, it's perfect. I wouldn't need to go any lower. The comms, I have a Yaesu FTM 400. It's the ham radio. I have the GMRS mod opened up on it. So I have the ham, I have GMRS, and then I also have a CB. It's down here. And it's actually an AM and an FM CB. As far as the interior goes, it's carpets ripped out, the rhino lined floor, and then I got PRP suspension seats, which are really nice, but they come with a price tag. I have this tablet mount here. I typically run, I think it's an 8-inch, just Android tablet with all my navigation stuff on it. And then in the back, I've actually removed the rear seat. We can take a look. This box that holds all my recovery stuff. So it comes out, I got all my straps there. Up there's the stuff I don't use very often, like stuff to fix tires and some electrical stuff. Onboard air, I have 2 of these Viair 400s.
So what do you think your favorite mod overall is on this thing?
That's gonna be the transmission. You know, I didn't even really know it. I kind of went into it blindly thinking, oh yeah, it would be cool to have a 6-speed, but the best part about it is that ultra low first gear. It really changes things. You know, it bolts right up to the motor. You got to do a little bit of wiring on your crank position sensor, and that thing's awesome.
And what do you wish you would have done differently?
That's a pretty easy one for me because I married myself in. I put these shock towers right here and at this angle from where the axle was sitting at that time of the build. And at this point, I'd really like to go back with the axle, but I can't really do it without chopping all this out and trying to resituate it in the frame.
What type of wheeling does it do best in?
Snow, definitely snow. Does better than just about any and every Toyota. You can see this guy's face behind the camera. But no, it does best in snow, mainly because it's still pretty light and it's got a big footprint. It does pretty good in rocks, but it's pretty limited in the rocks because it's only a 95.5-inch, 96-inch wheelbase. So it tries to come over backwards on you. You got to be really quick on the clutch in the rocks. But when I first put this thing together, it had the stock 35 with the 27 spline stock axles, and I welded the rear end and I was pulling a trailer with it. So I snapped an axle, and they're C-clip axles, so it come out the side. I broke the front ring gear finally which is what made me push to get the bigger axles. And then one time, my very first time in Moab, I ripped the control arms off of one side of it completely. I had to ratchet strap the front end basically back under the Jeep completely, and then drive it 35 miles to a shop that would fix it down the highway.
Does your Jeep have a name?
We call it the Beaver, And you know, Andrew's got a very specific nickname for me, and I think this time it probably fits.
He was literally just telling me about this as I happened. That's pretty awesome.
So one thing that I failed to mention, probably because it was so long ago and I forgot about it, but this fuel tank used to come down like this the whole way across. And I cut it out and inverted it to make this gap for the big giant Dana 60 pumpkin. And there's a plastic tank in there, that's just the carrier. So we had to literally heat up the plastic tank, obviously no fuel in it, and mold it around that, which was a lot of work. It's kind of a fun thing to have done, but if you're looking at doing it, just buy the Genrite tank. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the breakdown of my TJ. I hope you guys liked it. Thanks for watching. And if you have any other questions about my TJ, leave them in the comments and I'll try to get to them. I do read every single comment also. So we're going to be doing Andrew's 4Runner next. So let me know the kind of questions that you have about that.